After a year in isolation due to the pandemic, E3 was supposed to be the event that brought gamers back together for some of the most exciting reveals of the year. I, for one, was super excited to finally see Link on the big screen again, Halo Infinite's insane multiplayer, and what has become one of the most anticipated games of the year, Elden Ring. But if I wasn't sitting with my jaw dropped to the ground, I was sitting in an uncomfortable office chair waiting for people to stop talking. Let's break down my experience of E3 2021. The real beginning of E3 was actually Summer Game Fest, which was an unexpectedly great way to kick things off. I'll only be going through some of the highlights, so if you want to see the entire stream, there is a link to it in the iCard in the top right hand corner. So we start off with Tiny Tina's Wonderland, a D&D inspired spin-off game for the Borderlands franchise focusing on Tiny Tina, one of the series' beloved characters from Borderlands 3. Although I'm not super familiar with the Borderlands franchise, this looks like an interesting addition to the series. Next up was the revival of Metal Slug Tactics, which was honestly a bit of a surprise for me. Starting with an animation reminiscent of 90s anime, this grid-based tactical strategy is bursting to the seams with style. From the beautiful 8-bit environments to the Persona-like cut-ins that appear for special moves, I'm ready to grab this game day one. I can't wait to get more updates for the game as the Dotemu and Liker team progress. The next game that caught my eye was equally stunning with a mesmerizing soundtrack to boot. Sable, which was originally announced in 2018, is reaching the end of its development with the hopes of releasing the game September 23rd of this year. After playing the demo, I'm excited to get my hands on the game, but I am a little bit worried about some of the mechanics that will hopefully receive some fine-tuning before release. I'll cover this more in a future video, but for right now, let's dive into Tales of Arise, the latest installment to the Tales of series. The only Tales game I've played is Tales of Vesperia, one of the better known of the franchise. Unfortunately for me, I felt like I was sitting in the back seat for most of it because my brother had control over just about everything. Putting that experience aside, the evolution of the combat has piqued my interest, so I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for it come September. Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance, which was recently released on Game Pass, looks like a fun game to play with your friends, kill some monsters, and explore a world that a dungeon master would dream of. I feel like this game is perfect for Game Pass because I have no reason not to at least try it. I spoke with my local dungeon master and D&D enthusiast, and he had this to say about the game. I am downloading it as we speak. However, after playing the game for as long as the server would allow me and my brother, we found it needs a lot of work before we reinstall it. Before we move on to the next game trailer, I do have to mention how much I love the Nier X Fall Guys collaboration. It's one of the best DLC costumes I have ever seen, and I want it. I don't even play Fall Guys, but I will buy it to wear this. Speaking of costume tributes, Tunic is a cute action-adventure game that becomes demonic very quickly. I recently got to play the demo and very quickly discovered that this fox isn't here to play around. I was actually having some difficulty getting through the first stage of the demo. This game definitely requires some skill and patience, so I encourage you to test your skills by trying it out. And then it happened. I got to witness Jeff Keighley escape gamer jail live on air by revealing Elden Ring. After finally seeing what everyone was talking about, I can see why fans were so eager for this reveal. In the true fashion of a From Software game, I immediately got Dark Souls vibes. After watching a couple streamers give their opinion on the gameplay we've seen thus far, I believe they were saying the game's combat looked like a cross between the aggression of Sekiro and the patience needed to play Dark Souls. Either way, all I know is that it's going to be hard, and I'll probably rage quit a few times. And that closed out the Summer Game Fest kickoff. Now here are some things that they did brilliantly, which will be surprisingly lacking in some of the next presentations for E3. Show actual gameplay. Limit the talking between reveals. As someone who's studying production, I think literally everyone knows to show and not tell when you're trying to sell people on something. Focus on games or game-related things, and more, which were all unfortunately featured in the E3 broadcast. But before we look at E3's official kickoff, let's take a look at the Day of the Devs. I think it's awesome that indie games are developing a bigger spotlight, but most of the time I would unfortunately be lying if I said they hyped me up like AAA games do. This year, however, might be a changing point for me. Here are my top 5 games from the Day of the Devs. Number 5, Behind the Frame. Number 4, unbeatable. Number 3, Phantom Abyss.
As players delve deeper into a temple, they become hunted by that temple's guardian. Guardians are incredibly powerful beings that will stop at nothing.
Number 2, Loot River. And number 1, Garden Story. With honorable mentions for Death's Door, Vocabulantis, and A Musical Story. I'd highly recommend checking out the Day of the Devs, the Tribeca Games Spotlight, the Guerrilla Collective, the Wholesome Direct, the PC Gaming Show, and the Future Gaming Show to see more really cool and unique indies coming soon. Okay, so this next event we need to talk about. The Koch Prime Time event. If you saw my E3 predictions video, you know I was kind of excited for this presentation, mainly for Saints Row and possibly Dead Island, which I later found out was deconfirmed by Koch, which is fine. What's not fine is having developer interviews for 2 hours with maybe 20 minutes of gameplay total. I enjoy watching developer interviews, mainly for games I already like, but I would love to see new developers get a spotlight as well. However, the devs are rarely the stars of any of these gaming conferences. It's always about the games. We want to see what you're trying to sell us on, not hear descriptions about it. I understand that Prime Matters is a new publisher and that they weren't ready to show off a lot of games that they discussed, but I don't really think they should have replaced gameplay time with interviews that no one can really connect with. I don't know if they felt forced to show something because it's E3, but I would have been totally fine with waiting for an actual gaming event. Hopefully they learned from this because they definitely disappointed fans and put developers in a sticky situation for little reward. The big day finally arrived. E3 2021 kicked off with the Ubisoft Forward event. Although we didn't get that Assassin's Creed Japan announcement, Ubisoft was still able to make a good impression by showing Far Cry 6 and Rainbow Six Extraction. The announcements that really stole the show for me, however, as far as being surprising, has to be Riders Republic, which looks really fun, Mario plus Rabbids, Sparks of Hope, which looks way cooler than the first game, and a freaking Avatar game titled Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. The Blue Man Group is back, baby! Overall, Ubisoft has a very solid presentation, but the best was yet to come. The next big event was the Xbox plus Bethesda showcase, and I must say I haven't been this proud of Microsoft in a long time. So we started off with the reveal trailer for Starfield, which was interesting, but I need a little bit more before I can really get hype. But wait, it gets better. We see Back 4 Blood, which was obviously going to be dope. Then we see a reveal trailer for a game called Contraband, which I was honestly kind of intrigued. It had a little bit of an Ocean's 11 feel, and it's supposed to be an open world co-op game, so sign me up. Then Sea of Thieves and Battlefield 2042 surprised me. The Pirates of the Caribbean expansion is honestly genius, and if I was gonna pick up the game, it would be to play that. Then Battlefield was just looking like a whole entire snack out here. The cinematic trailer was super fun, and then the gameplay looked crazy with the amount of weapon customization and freedom that you get on the map. Then we got to see the return of Psychonauts 2, a fan favorite for Xbox fans, as well as two really beautifully mysterious games, 12 Minutes and Sombreville. And then it happened. The day that Xbox finally won with Halo. The new cinematic trailer was cool and all, but did you see that multiplayer? The weapons, the mobility, the announcer, the f***ing samurai armor? I haven't been this excited for a Halo title since Reach. Now Halo's gotta be a tough act to follow, right? Well, it definitely was, but there still managed to be 3 games that caught my attention in between me daydreaming about Halo. Replaced, which is by far one of the best, if not the best looking 8-bit game I saw during E3, and there were a lot of them. Forza Horizon 5, which had a pretty cool location this time around, and Redfall, the game that had people screaming because the protagonist is a black woman. When I saw her, I genuinely did not believe that she was going to be the main character, but I think this is super dope, especially since the game already looked cool. I got a little bit of a Left 4 Dead vibe, but people have been saying it's an open world game, so I'm curious to hear more. And that ended the Xbox plus Bethesda conference. In my opinion, this is the best showing Xbox has had since the rocky conferences we saw last year with the launch of the Series X. Not to mention the number of exclusives and games coming to Game Pass. If you didn't have the Game Pass before the showcase, now I feel like you have no excuse not to pick it up. Xbox really made it a point to prove that the Game Pass is the best valued gaming service for consoles, period. To close out day 2 of E3, Square Enix stepped up to the plate to try and woo their fans, and I know it kinda worked for me. There weren't any updates for Final Fantasy XVI, which was a little sad, but Square did a good job of making me forget by surprising everyone with a lot of info on the new Guardians of the Galaxy game. We did get an update on Life is Strange True Colors, but I was honestly more interested in the Final Fantasy origin story, Stranger of Paradise. I think this is the Souls-like game that people have been talking about, but so far, all I know about the game is that we will be destroying chaos.
Looks like chaos has been waiting for us. I want to kill chaos. Chaos.
And then there was Nintendo, the last conference that could possibly save E3. And it was alright. I wasn't super thrilled that Kazuya from Tekken got into Smash, but I do think it was a good pick and his moveset looks really dope. Then we got to see a lot of games that we've seen for the past week at this point, plus WarioWare, which looks as crazy as ever, a deeper look into SMT5, which I was really into this time around, and Metroid Dread, which was the biggest reveal of the conference. I didn't grow up playing Metroid, so I can only get so excited, although I am happy that fans finally got a game to quench their thirst. To be honest with you though, all I wanted was Breath of the Wild 2. And boy did Papa Nintendo deliver. I mean, look at it! It's even better than I could have imagined. We've got Sky Cities, new enemies, Link's missing an arm now, and what? Overall though, I thought the Direct was good, but it felt like Nintendo was holding back a little bit, which is another issue with E3. I love that E3 was able to happen this year, even if it was only virtual this time. But I feel like this year especially, there were not as many huge surprises, mainly just updates on things we already knew about. Now I know COVID heavily affected everyone, including the game industry, so just having expo like this was amazing. But I can't help but wonder what these companies might be saving for their own company-specific presentations, like Bandai and Warner Brothers for example. Although they did announce what they were doing beforehand, so we can't get too upset, I really wanted an update on titles that haven't been talked about since last year. But it does make sense in a way. Why share the spotlight when you can have a one-company show? It just sucks for events like these when the game industry is supposed to come together to wow their fans and celebrate what's to come for the year. One last thing that bugged me was the way that the panels were done. Aside from having an hour panel for a 10-minute gaming conference, the other panels that took place on day 3 felt like an interruption to the game announcements. I think diversity and inclusion is very important, especially in the gaming industry, but the Take-Two interactive panel just felt poorly timed in my opinion. It was done during a slow day for E3, and the chat for both Twitch and YouTube was downright terrible and unreceptive. I think having a promo for each panel would have been nice, and then they could have guided people to the E3 virtual portal, which would have worked in an alternate universe, to actually partake in the discussion. Overall, E3 2021 was a good expo, but I don't know if this will be enough to save the convention. Summer Game Fest was a much better event in my opinion and could possibly usurp E3 in the near future if improvements aren't made. I still had a good time, but it did leave a little to be desired. What did you guys think about E3? And do you think the event is dying like other people say it is? Also, we still haven't heard from Sony directly until this morning, that is. The new State of Play has been announced for Thursday, July 8th at 5 p.m. Eastern. Okay, well, that is it for now. But if you guys want to keep up with me, you can check me out on twitch.tv/swiper_prime. Recently, I've been playing a lot of Yakuza Like a Dragon, Persona 5 Strikers, and a little bit of Ghost of Tsushima here and there just to wrap things up to get that platinum trophy. It'll be my first one, so that's going to be cool. But if you guys want to see stuff more on the production side, like movies and TV and anime, which I'm starting to get more into as I get comfortable, then you guys can check me out on my Swiper channel, which will be linked in the iCard in the top right-hand corner. And for all things gaming, you can stay right here and be on the lookout for my E3 demos video. And what's a better way to get that recommended to you than by liking this video, so that way more of my videos get into your recommendation feed, and by subscribing in order to join the community and the conversation that we're going to be having about games, game announcements, and gaming news. Alright, well, plugs aside, I hope you all have a nice evening or night, or enjoy it. I will see you guys next time. Peace!